You ever just get that feeling that something is, well, off? Like there's some quiet change happening in the background of our modern world. Something that affects, about half the people on the planet, but that we almost never talk about. Well, today we're pulling back the curtain on what might be one of the biggest hidden stories of our time. A silent countdown that's been ticking away for decades. So let's just dive right in with a question that I know, it sounds like total clickbait, but I promise you it is backed by a shocking amount of data. The question is, are men today, and I mean literally, half the men their grandfathers were? It's a provocative question for sure, but the science pointing to the answer, well, that's where things get really interesting. Because when you look at the actual numbers, this is what you see. A jaw-dropping 51.6% global drop in average sperm concentration just between 1973 and 2018. I mean, just let that sink in for a second. More than half. Gone. In less than a single lifetime. And look, this isn't just about fertility. This is a huge warning sign for men's health across the board. And that is exactly what we do here. Welcome to Unspoken Rules, the place where we dig into the hidden truths and, well, the unwritten rules that are quietly shaping our lives. And today's unspoken rule is a big one. Our modern world is fundamentally changing male biology, and it's all happening right under our noses. So the big question is, how did we get here? I mean, this didn't just happen overnight. This has been a 50-year mystery, a kind of slow-motion puzzle that scientists have been piecing together for decades, a lot of the time while facing some pretty major skepticism. Okay, so the story really exploded onto the scene way back in 1992. The study comes out and just drops a bombshell, claiming a 50% decline over 50 years. And at the time, man, it was hugely controversial. People just didn't want to believe it. So let's fast forward to 2017. A massive, super comprehensive meta-analysis comes out and confirms it, showing a 52.4% drop in Western countries. And that's when the world really started to pay attention. But the most recent update from 2023, that was the real shocker. It showed that this decline isn't just a Western problem. No, it's global. And here's the real kicker. The rate of decline has more than doubled since the year 2000. So it's not just happening, it is speeding up. Now, you might still be sitting there feeling a little skeptical, and you know what? That's totally fair. In fact, one of the top researchers in this entire field, Dr. Shanna Swan, she was a doubter at first too. She's on record saying, "I was a skeptic originally." Just think about that for a second. When the very experts who are now sounding the alarm started out as non-believers, it really tells you just how powerful and frankly undeniable the evidence has become. Okay, so if this is real, and the evidence says it is, then what in the world is causing it? Well, the investigation leads us straight to a group of invisible invaders, suspects that are all around us in our everyday lives. We're talking about the chemical culprits. We're talking about a class of chemicals called endocrine disrupting chemicals, or EDCs for short. Now, the easiest way to think about these things is as hormone hackers. Seriously. They're chemicals from the outside world that get into our bodies, and they can impersonate our hormones, they can block them, or they can just generally scramble the signals, throwing critical systems like reproduction and development completely out of whack. So where are these hormone hackers hiding? Well, pretty much everywhere. We're talking about things called phthalates, which make plastics soft and scents last longer. They are in everything from your vinyl shower curtain to your shampoo. Then you've got BPA, which lines most of our food cans and is even on the thermal paper for receipts. And that's before we even get to the pesticides in our food and water or the flame retardants that are woven into our furniture and carpets. They are, quite literally, hiding in plain sight. And if you want a really startling example of just how powerful these chemicals can be, get this. In lab studies, researchers found that when a pregnant rat was exposed to phthalates during a really critical window of development, her male babies were born with a whole collection of reproductive problems. They actually called it phthalate syndrome. The exposure of just one generation was directly reprogramming the biology of the next. It's pretty serious stuff. But, chemicals aren't the only suspects in this investigation. Turns out they have accomplices. And to find them, we just need to look a little closer to home, at our own daily habits. Let's start with the food we eat. A massive study using data from the UK Biobank basically put our modern eating habits under a microscope. And the results? They're crystal clear. A diet that's high in ultra-processed foods, the stuff in crinkly bags and boxes, it floods your body with something called C-reactive protein, which is a huge red flag for chronic inflammation. On the flip side, a diet of whole, unprocessed foods does the exact opposite, and it boosts proteins that are absolutely essential for healthy hormone function. So the unspoken rule here is pretty simple. What you eat either fuels the fire of inflammation or it helps put it out. And this all feeds directly into our next accomplice, body weight. The science here is it's overwhelming. There's a clear inverse relationship. As a man's body mass index, or BMI, goes up, his total testosterone levels tend to go down. And it's because excess body fat doesn't just sit there. It's metabolically active. It acts like its own little hormone factory, and it can directly interfere with the hormones you do want. And finally, let's talk about maybe the most silent accomplice of all, bad sleep. Just think of it like this. Your body's testosterone factory, it runs the night shift. Production peaks while you're in deep sleep. So when you disrupt that sleep, whether it's from stress or sleep apnea or just one too many late nights scrolling on your phone, you are essentially shutting down the entire assembly line. It's not just about what you eat or how much you weigh, it's also about how well you recharge. Okay, so I know that was a lot of pretty concerning news, but the unspoken rule of problems is that they almost always have solutions. So now we're going to pivot. We're moving from the investigation to the playbook. How do we actually start to take back control? First things first, let's talk about reducing our chemical load. And look, these are simple, practical steps you can start taking today. Swap out those plastic food containers for glass or stainless steel. Easy enough. Since BPA often lines metal cans, try to cut back on canned foods when you can. Choosing fresh, and if possible, organic produce is a fantastic way to dodge pesticide exposure. And hey, next time you're buying deodorant or soap, just take an extra second to look for products labeled phthalate-free. These are small changes, but trust me, they add up to a really big impact over time. Next up, let's boost our biology from the inside out. Strength training, even just hitting the weights twice a week, has been shown to give testosterone a significant lift. You've got to make sleep a non-negotiable priority. You're aiming for that 7 to 9 hour sweet spot every night. Make sure you're not low on key micronutrients like vitamin D and zinc. They are literally the raw materials, the building blocks for your hormones. And, like we just saw, maintaining a healthy weight is one of the single most powerful things you can do for your overall hormonal health. Now, taking all these individual steps is fantastic and absolutely crucial. But to truly solve this problem, we need to think bigger. We need to start focusing on rewriting the rules that got us into this mess in the first place. The scientists behind that huge 2017 study used a really powerful metaphor. They called this whole situation a canary in the coal mine. Now, for anyone who doesn't know, old school miners used to carry canaries down into the mines with them because the little birds were way more sensitive to toxic gases. If the canary got sick, the miners knew the air was unsafe and it was time to get out fast. This decline in male reproductive health, it's not just about having babies. It is a massive warning sign about the overall health of our environment and of ourselves. And that, right there, leaves us with the final crucial question. The evidence is clear. Our modern environment is shaping our biology in ways we're only just beginning to wrap our heads around. The unspoken rule we can no longer afford to ignore is that we have a choice in this. So what are we going to do to reshape our environment for the better? Now, for the final unspoken rule of this channel, knowledge this important can't just stay a secret. If you learned something new today, if anything here made you think, go ahead and leave a mark by hitting that like button. The conversation doesn't end here. I really want to know what you think, so share your thoughts on how we can rewrite these rules down in the comments below. And to make sure you don't miss the next secret we uncover, subscribe and be sure to ring that notification bell. Don't let the algorithm decide which unspoken truths you get to learn about.